Well, hello friends, welcome back, another video. Mike here, hello. Today's video I'm going to be talking about His Dark Materials. I'm actually going to be doing the His Dark Materials book tag. I first saw this tag on Jen Campbell's channel and I will link that below. I've just finished a reread of the His Dark Materials trilogy. I say just finished a couple of months ago, and it's been playing on my mind ever since the Book of Dust, really, back in November last year. So I felt like now was the time to actually tackle the book tag, because I wanted to do it earlier than this, but it's been a while since I've reread them, so I wanted to give myself the chance to reread them and then to do the tag. So let's just jump in. The first question is, I have it on my phone, what editions of the books do you have? So the editions that I have are these lovely hardback ones. They are the 10th anniversary editions. This is the lovely Northern Lights one. Oh, the light's a bit funny. It's the 10-year anniversary hardbacks. They're really, really beautiful. It doesn't have anything on the back there. It's got these lovely inside drawings, and each one is specific to the book. This one is about Lord Asriel's notes, I think. I don't know what these are called, but I love these. They're so handy. If you've got a hardback book, I think that they should all come with these ribbons so you can use as a bookmark, because I don't have bookmarks. Do you have bookmarks? Are you bookmark people? I don't have a bookmark. I always have to do, I use like receipts or just scraps of things that I find. At the moment, I've gone very upmarket. I'm sorry, I'm currently reading, this is a little treat for you, currently reading this Doctor Who novel by Russell T Davies. It's Rose. It's a novelisation of his first episode. Only a little dinky little book. I love it. More on that later, sorry, but my bookmark situation. Upmarket, I printed out, look at this. I printed out some printable bookmarks, and you can even colour them in. I did it on printer paper, so it's a bit of flims, but you know, yeah. So anyway, if you get bookmarks, what kind of bookmarks do you use? Where do you get them from? I actually would like to know. Please comment below, because I love a bookmark. I need bookmarks. Can't keep using receipts, you know. Who uses receipts? Who do I think I am? Anyway, so I digress. These are the editions I have. This is a lovely one of the Northern Lights, and the subtle knife is red. Beautiful. It is shiny, very, very shiny. And inside this one has drawings of the subtle knife and findings of plants and things. I think this must be, whose notes are these then? Because if the first book has the notes from Lord Asriel, this must be from Grummond's notes. I think that's Grummond's notes, which is lovely. And then the third one is the Amber Spyglass. It's a beast of a book, isn't it? It's beautiful though. And this one has Mary Malone's notes in. I don't know if you can see that. It's very bright today, but you know, one needs the light for this, so you have to deal with it. I'm sorry. Those are the versions I have. They aren't the first versions I owned. The first versions I owned were the paperback versions, basically of these covers. They were the first ones, so they had these drawings on and this font, but they were paperback. Question 2: what is my favourite book? Now, this is interesting. I think if you'd asked me this before this particular reread, I would have said Northern Lights. But after this reread, in my 34th year, I'm gonna go, the Amber Spyglass is my favourite. I loved it. I just thought the pacing was right, and there were sort of several mini climaxes before you got to the big climax at the end of the novel. All the characters came together, all the characters are in it that I wanted to be in it. I just found this time round, this one I really responded very well to. I read it quite quickly, but at the same time I was taking my time with it so that I could enjoy it. So yeah, that's my favourite of the three. Which is quite unusual, I think, to like the last book in a trilogy the best. Because most of the time, the end of a trilogy, or maybe I'm thinking more about films here, but the end of a trilogy of films is never quite as satisfying as the first two that are building things up. Anyway, so that's my favourite book. Question 3 is, who is my favourite character? Again, this is completely influenced by my recent reread, and it has to be Mary Malone. I loved her story, I loved her arc. I was a bit unsure about her in The Subtle Knife, because when she comes into it, she's a bit at the end of her tether, and it's a bit strange that this little girl has come into her lab and starts speaking to her about quantum physics. But she comes in and Lyra changes her life, changes her world, and I sort of had to kind of, she just starts explaining this stuff to Lyra, and I was a bit like, would you really just start explaining this to a little girl? I don't know. So her entrance isn't why I love her, but her story is why I love her. She goes through so much, and the you know, through the whole world with the, I can't say those creatures, you know, the creatures in the book 3, Mulefla, I'm going to put that out there. I loved her story with them. I thought that was completely and utterly fascinating. I think as a kid reading it, perhaps I didn't understand it as much, or I didn't get the larger impact of it. But in this read, I loved it. And the scene with her and Lyra at the fire at the end of book 3 was beautiful and beautifully written, and I felt quite moved by it. And I loved hearing about Mary's life before this. And I'm really hoping that we get to see a bit more of Mary. In the Book of Dust sequels, I don't know whether it's going to happen. I'm not sure whether Philip Pullman has actually spoken about whether there's going to be anything from any other worlds in his new novels, the Book of Dust trilogy, or whether it's just going to be in Lyra's world following Lyra. I don't know, but I'm secretly hoping for a little bit of Mary, just a little bit of what happens to her. That would be fab. Question 4, what would my demon be? Now, I did a test on Facebook actually reasonably recently, and it was one of those multiple choice questions that told you what your demon would be, and mine was a lyre bird. It's an Australian bird. Let me see if I can read out what a lyre bird. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I need a new phone, peeps. It's starting to get very slow. It's a ground-dwelling Australian bird, okay, and it can mimic sounds, so it copies, and I quite like that. Wikipedia. What would we do? It's a ground-dwelling Australian bird, and it has the superb ability to mimic natural and artificial sounds from their environment. The striking beauty of the male bird's huge tail, obviously that's me, when it's fanned out in courtship display, the plumes of natural coloured tail feathers, naturel, among Australia's best known native birds. So that would be my demon, completely. That's just me to a T. Question 6, which object would you choose? The alethiometer, the subtle knife, or the amber spyglass? This is hard, because I think that the alethiometer might actually frustrate me. Not only because if I could actually read it, getting to see the truth of what I'm asking might frustrate me, but also the ability to read it needs to be learnt and studied for a lifetime and with loads of books and things, and I don't know whether I'd have the patience. The amber spyglass, I'm sort of, what would I use it for, you know? You get to see the dust in the air, and while that's beautiful, I don't know. Amber spyglass camera, that would be good. But so I think with the process of elimination, I'm going to go subtle knife, but then I wouldn't be able to use the subtle knife knowing what I know after book 3. But if I had to choose, I'd have the knife. If nothing else, I could cut up my veg with it, right? Make some nice soup. Number 7 is, have you read any of the accompanying literature? Lyra's Oxford, Once Upon a Time in the North, or The Collectors? So, yes and no. I own them in these beautiful editions. They're quite cool, little hardback ones. I've had them for many years. I haven't read them. I don't know why. I started reading Lyra's Oxford after a reread, a previous reread of the trilogy, and I think because I didn't understand. I didn't get it. I've never finished it, so I'm gonna have to go back and read this and this, and I had to get this one because I had this version and I wanted them to be the same. And I do own the collectors, and I have actually read the collectors because that was on Kindle, so I bought that and read it straight away because it had been many years since I'd read his Dark Materials, and it is fine. I feel like I need to read it now that I've just read the 3 original novels. So I think I might go back and reread that because that's just a quick little short story. Liked it. I did enjoy it, but I just feel like to get it, I need to read them again. And then the last question is question 8. What has been your experience with the series? When did you first read them? Have you reread them, etc.? So kind of touched on this, but I have read them many times. Uncountable times. I don't know. I don't know how many times. I read them a long time ago. I must have read them when I was a teenager. Probably a teenager. Interesting story about getting them. My mum bought me a book for Christmas one year, and she bought me the Amber Spyglass in paperback, and I was like, oh, this looks cool, and then I read the back and I was like, oh, this is the last in a trilogy. And then my mum just said, well, you know, you can use your Christmas money to buy the first 2. This was not planned. No. My mum wouldn't have planned that, but it's a fab story anyway. So I don't remember. I must have used my Christmas money to buy the first 2. I did read them when I was a teenager, and I loved Northern Lights so much. So much. I love Yorick. I love Seraphina. I love, yeah. Oh, I do. I love that book. It's interesting that I've changed my mind now to my favourite one being the Amber Spyglass. But yeah, no, I did. I'm sticking with that choice. And so I read them when I was a teenager. I reread them. I've reread them many times, and this time I feel like I got a lot more from them than previously, and I just love them. They really have had quite an effect on me, and they must do, because I do keep rereading them, and I feel like I learn things again, but it feels like I'm learning them for the first time. It's quite strange actually. When I was reading the Amber Spyglass this time round, I felt like I was reading it again for the first time. I didn't remember hardly any of what had happened, and that's probably why I enjoyed it so much, because it felt familiar, but it felt so different as well. I could not figure out why I couldn't remember everything. I couldn't remember anything. I didn't know what was happening, and it was like, it was just so exciting again. And yeah, so I love them. I read them a lot. I don't read them every year. I tend to go through a bit of a Philip Pullman stage, and then I'm probably now gonna read a bunch of books. This year I'm reading books that I haven't read before. I haven't gone back and read for a few months now. I'm a bit of a rereader actually. I do enjoy rereading books. Things like Harry Potter, just general things. I like rereading books. So I'm going through a book phase right now where I'm not rereading. I will probably come back to His Dark Materials trilogy in a couple of years' time, although with the release of the Book of Dust Part 2 and 3 kind of on the horizon, maybe I'll read them and want to read this stuff again. I will say this, after having read these 3 now, I did want to plunge straight back into the Book of Dust for a second time, but I withheld that urge because I have a pile of books so big now that I want to read, and I'm thoroughly enjoying reading, that I'm going to try and hold off on rereading for a bit. Yes, so my experience of them is just, I love them, and I can reread them, and I'm just so interested in them still. The Book of Dust has expanded His Dark Materials in such an interesting way. I do want to reread it, which is also why I'm currently reading Daemon Voices by Philip Pullman, because this is a book of essays about His Dark Materials, and it must say something about a book series if you want to read essays about the books and read the books. It's just so good. I feel like I have to mention one thing though before I'm going to wrap this up, because Mary Malone is my favourite character. She is my favourite character, and that is fascinating to me because one of my absolute favourite characters in all of the literature that I have read is Mrs. Coulter. Marissa Coulter is one of my absolute favourite characters, and I'm not calling her a villain, I'm not calling her anything. She is just herself. She's so morally ambiguous. She lies with the truth, and you just never ever know where you stand with her, and I just adore that. I adore that you don't know, but you do know, but you want her to be good and loving, but you know that she's actually got an agenda of her own, and she's so well rounded. I adore her. So for me to say that Mary Malone's my favourite character this time round means that Mary Malone and the Amber Spyglass had quite a profound effect on me this time round, because it would have been Marissa Coulter otherwise. And I just love them both. If I could have two, those would be my favourite two, but I had to settle on one, as Mary Malone. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this tag, guys. If you have read these books, please comment below. Tell me why you like them. Tell me the answers to your question, or in fact, you know what? Do a video. I tag you. I'll put the questions below. I'll put the link to Jen's video below. And just, if you haven't read these books, I don't know where you've been, but please do yourself the courtesy and just go and read them. You will not be disappointed. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys. I will see you soon. Okay, bye.